Hey, so this time I'm outside, which is kind of weird. To be honest, I really needed to do that because it's fucking cold in New York and I needed to get a walk out. And I figured I would try this new format. Um, well, it's kind of weird and I'm I'm not used to that. I might have to walk in streets where there's less people so that doesn't look too weird. But um, yeah, I thought I would take a walk to do this one. I guess I haven't done a vlog in a long time, and I was trying to think about what I could talk about. And I thought about maybe talking about why I did a startup. Um, the reason is that I think it's a good topic. I have a lot of friends or people that ask me why I created a startup or how come I created a startup or is it stressful? Is it, a lot of work? Is it so people have all sorts of ideas about creating startups, and they also think that entrepreneurs are crazy for leaving a good paying job and creating a startup. But yeah, I'm here to tell you that it's not that crazy. I of course I got into it because of oh shit, I need to cross. All right. Whoop. So it's not that crazy. I got into it sort of smoothly due to my path, I guess. I don't know if this is gonna be very noisy as a video. Maybe I'm gonna record that for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then I'll have to throw it away because there's too much noise. But yeah, um, I guess I got into this just because I started somewhere and then I was doing a lot of things that were sort of entrepreneurial when I was young. Was sort of doing mini startups in a way. And then the second part of the answer, I mean that's the TLDR, is that I was surrounded by people that did startups. Everybody was doing startups around me, and so it was sort of natural, or it was kind of normal. Like it really normalized, I would say. When everybody's doing something around you, it just becomes easier to do it. You don't think of it as such a crazy thing anymore. And I think Tarantino said something like that. Like he wanted to become a director, and then he felt like he had to move to LA to be surrounded by I don't he didn't say winners, but he talked about the people around him as losers, I think. And I think what he wanted to say is that you don't have to see it as a winner loser situation, but it's just being surrounded by people who have the same interests and who are good at what they're doing is very inspiring, and it's very easy to become a I don't know marathon runner if you're always hanging out with marathon runners or something. Um, so yeah, the second part of the answer is that at some point in my life I moved to the Silicon Valley, or rather maybe San Francisco. I thought San Francisco was in Silicon Valley, but it was not. I moved there. Shit, I have to run again. Whoa. I moved to I moved to San Francisco thinking that it was the Silicon Valley because I wanted to be surrounded by people that like computers, I guess. Um, I was always really into computers, but I was kind of the only one throughout my childhood, and so it was kind of a dream to be to live in a place where everybody's into that. So that's I always wanted to go to the Silicon Valley, and then I moved there, and then I was like, okay, what do I do now? I'm gonna join a thing, join a big corporation. Then I'm gonna join a startup, and I'm gonna make my own startup. That was sort of the plan, and I guess that's what I did over the next 5 years. I, some point, pretty rapidly left my job to join Facebook to work on that Libra project, and then and in the meantime, while I was there, I wrote a book. So I guess I did more than what I had in mind. Although I wanted to write a book for a long time, but this for another story. And then I joined a startup. It's funny because that was already a kind of a leap of faith. I at the time I halved my salary to join a very small startup just because I wanted to be in the space. I wanted to do more zero knowledge proofs. and I wanted to do interesting things while getting that kind of a startup experience. And then I I drove it down to zero, I guess, by leaving and trying to do my own thing. Um, Leaving my job to do my own thing was always like super scary. But actually, I wanted to quit my job several times throughout my career, even after my first 2 years of work, just to create my own startup. But it was kind of scary, and then every time I said I would do it, my employer gave me more money. So it was always easier. There was no inertia for me to create a startup. It was always easier to just stay where I was and just collect. Even though sometimes I was unhappy and so on. Um, and at some point, I think I got kind of fed up with what I was doing with my life, and I was like, okay, this is the right time. I'm gonna try to do that. Like I have to try. If I don't try, it's never gonna happen. At the same time, right when I left, I have an ex coworker that reached out to me for a job, and so it's like the day after or something like that. And so that paid for the bills for like a month, that just came from it was kind of like a miracle. Not that I believe in miracles, but that was right when I finally decide to jump, to make the jump, and I have no idea what's gonna happen. I don't even have time to panic, and I get a client out of nowhere, and basically that's what kept happening. Um, and a year after, or a year and something after having worked a lot training clients and these kind of things, we're now like 10 people in the company, so things have worked pretty well. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. I just wanted to say uh, how I got there. And what I was saying is that I went to San Francisco and I was surrounded by tech people and surrounded by people that created startups. And so that normalized the whole thing. So when I was at Libra, when the project kind of died, I think everybody left to create a startup. So I don't know. I can think of like 25 people that were on the team that was on the team, maybe more than 25, like 30 or something like that. Um, that pretty much left to do Miston Labs and Sway or Aptos or Linera or Bastion. Uh, I can't remember the name of the other. There's a few other projects. There's Lightspark. It was really prolific if you think about it. Like there was a like we worked with very interesting people, and everybody ended up leaving to create an interesting project. And I'm still in touch with all of them. I'm working with some of them. I'm seeing some of them pretty often here in New York. So it's been quite interesting. Um, I wouldn't have created it being in New York, by the way. I don't know if this is gonna trigger some people, but it's just there's something about San Francisco that, or the Bay Area, that there's just so much energy there, and it's hard to replicate. And it's not that there's so much energy; it's also that you don't have other types of people. It's either you're surrounded by tech people who are working at startups or at Fangs or creating their own startups, or nothing. Like you don't have artists, you don't have, I don't know, uh, I don't I can't even tell you because I didn't know what when I was there. My brain was rewired into thinking that everybody works in tech basically. Here in New York, my friends are very different, and I make friends with all sorts of people, which I love and I prefer. Um, but if you're in this kind of creating a startup mood and you want that energy, then you have to be in a place where you'll always almost feel forced to do it, because everybody's doing it around you. So that's kind of the first part of my answer, is that I was surrounded by people, by VCs, by tech people, and so on. The second part of the answer is that I had the savings. It's not like I made the jump from nowhere. Um, I was comfortable not working for a few months, which didn't end up happening, but I was. Even for, I probably could have done 6 months. I probably would have panicked, but I could have done it. It was not the end of the world. I have friends, I have a family, uh, I can rely on if needed. So that's also part of the answer. And I think another part of the answer that's interesting is that I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to go back to working for someone, and so I was really motivated to make it work, because if that didn't work, then I would have to go back to work, and would have to have a manager again, to agile again, do meetings again. I do meetings now, but it's because I want to, and it's like I have my efficient day and my productive day, and my schedule and all of that. Um, but when you work for someone, you have to have meetings, because you have to have these meetings, even if they're super useless. And that's been the case for like whoever I've worked for. Uh, the culture of meeting was always very present. Okay, so now let's get into the last part, so I can stop doing this and look ridiculous in the streets. The last part is how I grew up, and I don't want to say that if you didn't have the same childhood as me, then you're not gonna make it. But it definitely, I mean, it impacted me in a way that I moved to San Francisco and the Bay Area, and I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't been into computers as since I was a kid, and doing all these mini startups while I was growing up. So I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about that. There's a lot of things that I've done, and I messed around a lot when I was younger. Um, and I started coding pretty early. Started I was never really low level, which is interesting. I was always more of a creating websites, creating applications, creating games. I just wanted users. I just wanted to create tools that were useful for people. I was never really a low level guy, and I think that's what also, like, I feel like it's rare that low level people end up creating something, because they're just too deep into the stack, and they're not thinking about users and products and these kind of things, which is, I think, the interesting part when you create a startup, or at least if you want to be successful, you're gonna have to talk to users and do a lot of things that are not just coding and low level algorithm and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the story I used to tell is that I have several stories, but maybe I'll tell two stories. Maybe I'll say two stories. So the first one is when I was my first year of university. We had to do a presentation on what we wanted to do in the future, and basically we had like some business people would come from outside the university, and we'd have to present to them in small groups what what was our business plan, not business plan, but like what did we want to do, what we were going to do to find a job, to make money, and like a very pragmatic thing that all of us hated, but actually it was not such a stupid idea in retrospect. And for me, at the time, I had this website where you could basically, I don't, maybe people don't remember, it was kind of a brief phase of Facebook, but Facebook had these buttons that you could like on websites, and if you like the button on your profile page, it would show up as like the title of the page. So like if you liked the page that said that had the title "I love music," then it would show up in your profile like "I love music" and the like button, and then other people would like it on your profile, and it would pretty much go viral. Not necessarily realizing that they were liking the title of a web page, and so that would go viral, and you'd have these websites that would basically only list pages with fun titles like "My favorite color is blue," or "I couldn't live without X or Y," and these kind of things. And so a lot of American websites were doing that. That was going viral, and I was, I guess, the first French website to do it, and got into the, at the time there was this Alexa website, so I got into the top 500 website in France. I had like insane traffic, all of that supported by some PHP app with like some handwritten cache that was generating static HTML pages, and it was quite crazy because I was running that on a mutualized server, so not even a dedicated server. Like it was like $10 per month or so, or something like that. Um, and yeah, so that was my presentation that I did. And when I told them I was making $4,000 a month or €4,000 a month just from ads on that website, I remember that they didn't believe me. They were like, "Who is this guy bullshitting us?" They just made these faces and they gave me a bad grade. I remember that. Uh, so I was doing these like small websites and these small projects here and there, and at that time I made a lot of money um, just doing that. And what's kind of sad is that Facebook banned my pages, and my website a number of times. So I had to recreate things, start from scratch again. At some point, I just got tired of doing it. I guess I wasn't chasing the money, and I guess it's a good thing because not so long after they ended up shutting down the feature, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. And I had websites in like all languages, like in Spanish, in Italian, in French, like, but the French one was the one that was working pretty well. I got in the newspapers a number of times, including once because of that or thanks to that website. Um, and another website that people are using still are using uh, to write every day, including writers that write books using it. I never monetized that one just because I thought it was cool that people were using it. Um, okay, okay, I guess one last one. I think this one is funny, but I had a website when I was in university also. By the way, I had a website when I was in middle school, so I was doing these things for a long time. But in university, I started partying, doing student parties, and so I made a website to collect all these parties, just because it was useful for me, and so I could kind of advertise them and maybe make some money or I don't know. And I would write these articles, put my picture on them, so you have like my face on the website, and talk about like these student parties and so on. And I actually got into a bunch of parties for free with free alcohol, and I got my friends in these parties. So that was actually pretty cool. Like it led somewhere. I never made money from it, but at the time it was pretty cool. And so I always remember, but I was out there partying one night, walking the streets with my friends, and this girl comes and she's like, "Hey, you're David Wong? Are you David Wong?" And I was like, "Yeah, but how do you know?" And she was like, "Well, you have this website, right? I saw your face on this website." And that's when I realized I was like semi famous in my city just for having created that website and for writing articles about parties and so on. And then I guess it went to my head because if I would get bounced from a club, I would tell them, "Do you know who I am? I'm the creator of this, this web page, and I'll shit on your shitty club if you don't let me in." Of course, they would never let me in when that would happen, but I would I would be very pretentious and do these kind of things. But yeah. Anyway, I guess I think that's enough. I'm losing my nose. It's really cold. I'm tired of walking in the street and people looking weird at me. So maybe I'll stop you here and just say that um, maybe if you're kind of like me and you like this kind of creating projects here and there, it's actually not that complicated to create a startup. Um, what's hard is really the normalization and thinking that you can do it and that you can handle all these things. It doesn't mean you'll be successful, but it, if you're really this kind of person, I guess that it makes sense to try. If you have the means and maybe the an idea or these kind of things. And yeah, that's I guess that's it. Well, maybe this was useful for someone. All right, see you.